nobody works harder than our teachers and staff at Minster. And I want to say this also, nobody has more fun with our students. There's not a place on earth, and I would argue anyone to prove me otherwise, that has more fun with their students than what we do.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my special guest today is Josh Meyer. Josh is the superintendent at Minster Local School District in Minster, Ohio. And I found out he graduated from the same school that my husband did. He was a little bit younger than me. So, Josh, what a small world, and welcome to the show.
Well, certainly, Janet, and I appreciate you asking me to come on the podcast and share the great things that we have going on at Minster. And, it is a small world when not many people know where Rockford, Ohio and Parkway High School are. So it was certainly great to touch base before we started recording about some common ground.
Yeah, amazing. Because it's a small little school, but it produced my husband and many other great people. So, and I'm all the way in Corpus Christi, Texas now. So I love that so much. So tell us, Josh, tell us your journey to becoming superintendent and a little bit about Minster. I'd love to hear about it.
Sure. Well, my journey, my educational journey, I guess, I started as a junior high teacher at Corey Rawson Local Schools, which is just outside of Findlay, Ohio. And I taught there for 12 years, and I coached football, I coached track, I was the athletic director, and those listeners that are familiar with a small school know that you wear a lot of hats in a small school. And it was a great experience, and it was a super place to be. Very small rural school, a lot of great people there. And then about 10 years into my teaching career, I decided that I wanted to start my administration journey and the administration side of things. And got my administration degree from Wright State University in Dayton. My first administration job was as the assistant principal and athletic director at Napoleon High School, which is in Northwest Ohio, about 45 minutes west of Toledo. And I was the assistant principal and 7 through 12 athletic director there for 4 years. And it was such a wonderful first step into administration because I had the athletics piece that I was familiar with from being an athletic director previously at Corey Rawson. And I also gained the assistant principal administrative piece, that experience, with the teacher evaluations and the student discipline and the student attendance and the scheduling of classes and, working with counselors and working with in all the different interest groups and all that that went into that job. My wife and I were there 4 years, and then I became the high school principal at Covington High School, 7 through 12 principal at Covington High School. Covington's a small school, graduates about 60, 70 students a year, about 35 minutes northwest of Dayton. And I was there 4 years, and it was a wonderful community. Loved it there, loved my experience there. And then at the end of my first years as a principal there, the superintendent, we were doing my end of the year evaluation, and he asked if I'd ever thought of becoming a superintendent. And I quite honestly told him no. I barely know the staff here and the kids here. And he said, well, I think you'd be really good at it. I think you should think about it. And that summer I started taking classes again through Wright State and was at Covington for 4 years. The Minster job opened up. And I remember asking my wife, because she had said a year or two before that, after our second or third year at Covington, she had said she really loved it there. Our kids liked it there. And she said the only places that I think you should apply are, places closer to where we grew up. Coldwater's, St. Henry's, Minster.
Oh my gosh, all those places. I know all of those places.
Yeah. All those places in lovely West Central Ohio, very small, very rural schools, very high achieving schools. And I told her, I laughed because I said, those jobs don't come open. And a year later, the Minster job came open. And I mean, to make it long story short, I applied, interviewed, and I've been here 4 years. Love being part of the community. I have a senior in high school that'll graduate from Minster this year. I have a sophomore
Nice.
son here that'll graduate from Minster here in a couple years. So yeah, we're here and we love it here, and Minster's a great place. To talk a little bit specifically about Minster, it's a small town of about 2,000 residents in west central Ohio, maybe 45 minutes to an hour north of Dayton, hour and a half or so south of Toledo, west of I-75. It's still Minster is very family oriented, very church oriented, very community oriented, and very school oriented. So if I make it sound like it's the 1950s here, where it's church, family, and school, that's because in a large way it is. We had our opening night of baseball last night, and you look at the playground that's outside our left field fence at the baseball diamond, and there's 30 or 40 kids playing on the playground, totally
Yeah.
totally unsupervised by parents.
Right.
So that's just the type of community it is.
It's nice small town America. Definitely
Yes.
small town America. It's a lovely place to be, and it's so funny because I didn't even tell you that we lived in Ohio after we got married, my husband and I, and my daughter was born in Cincinnati, but both my boys were born in Dayton.
Oh yeah.
So when you started saying
Yeah.
Wright, I was like Wright-Patterson Air Force Base
Yeah.
and Wright State, and oh my gosh, we were 9/11. I was working outside of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base at one of the elementary schools there through Greene County ISD. I think it was ISD.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but anyway, and just all of these places that you're talking about. Yep, know that one. Yep, know that one. It's just my husband's family has been there forever. And, we were in Michigan for 19 years, but before that, we spent a significant amount of our early marriage in Ohio. And, he's an Ohio State fan. He always will be. Tried and true. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Yeah.
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 It's a big part of what we do here. So
Yeah,
that's
for sure. It's exciting. So tell me how many students do you guys have in Minster then?
sure. We have about 885 K through 12. We're a K through 12 campus, 2 buildings, all on one location, share parking lots, all that stuff. So an elementary building is K through 6 that has about 500 students in it, and then a 7 through 12 building that has about 375, 380 students.
So
in it.
are you pulling in from, that seems like a lot of kids for a city of 2,000. So are you pulling in from the rural areas from our surrounding? How's that work?
Yeah, we have a fairly good sized rural part of our district that is outside the village limits.
Okay.
And it's you think it's like you said, for a small town to have this many students in a K-12 campus, we still have we have a little bit of a dynamic going on here. So to get into the weeds a little bit, we're graduating classes in the lower 60s, and we are bringing in classes in the mid to upper 70s, lower 80s. So we are growing at a comfortable rate. Nothing that's drastic. Like, we're not bringing in a class of 120 going, oh my gosh, what do we do? And having said that, we are growing at about 15 students a year the last 4 or 5 years. So, I've been here 4 years. From year one to what we project next year, we've grown just about 75 students. But we have an interesting dynamic here where we're a small town, and a lot of our kids go away. They go away to UC or Dayton, University of Cincinnati or Dayton, or they go to Ohio State, and they get married, and maybe they live for 4 or 5, 8 or 10 years in those cities, and then they come back home.
They come home. Yeah.
They come home. They have 2 or 3 kids. One of them's in 3rd grade, maybe another one's in kindergarten, and they decide it's time to come home, and we encourage that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I was the one that didn't come home.
Yeah, that happens too.
Moved all- yeah. Although we came home for visits, we just never really came home.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, it's beautiful. It is a nice. I mean, we ended up in small town America as well. Up in Michigan, we lived in Pleasant Lake, tiny little Pleasant Lake north of Jackson.
Yeah.
So same kind of small town feel to it. But I think when you live in that environment and you grow up in that environment, I remember I moved from Grand Island, Nebraska, a town of about 40,000 people,
Yeah.
to New York to be a nanny. And talk about culture shock.
Oh,
And
I
just north
bet.
of New York City, I was
Yeah.
like,
I bet.
yeah,
But
crazy.
I mentioned that my wife and I have two kids in high school. We have five kids total, and this area of the state and Minster specifically are a terrific place to raise a family. They really are, and
Yeah.
we're big enough where kids have enough of an opportunity. They can be in band, they can be in art, they can be in all the sports. And it's small enough where if I stand outside the school door as the buses come in the morning, where I can say, I know a lot of our high school kids by name.
Yeah.
So it's big enough where they can have those opportunities to be involved in activities, and it's small enough where the superintendent, the principal still know your name.
Right. Absolutely. We were talking briefly about my husband in Rockford, Ohio. His senior year, he graduated in 1987. He was a catcher and a first baseman in baseball, and they won the state championship that year. And those guys are so still to this day really tight, even though they've moved all over and all had married and had kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But boy, it's just there's something about it.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful thing.
It
So
is, and to kind of bring that around, my older brother played on the '91 Parkway High School baseball championship team, and then last year the Minster High School baseball won a state championship,
oh,
and my son was
congratulations
a
to them.
junior on that team. So
Nice.
yeah, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Super fun. Super
yeah,
fun.
awesome.
So, what would you say are some of the, other than keeping the small town feel, which is really cool, but life is like running at exponential speed right now, with AI and with social media and all of those things. What kinds of things are you seeing, and how is that impacting how you guys
Yeah,
serve your kids in
sure.
Minster right now?
Sure, that's a great question. So Minster has a tremendous tradition academically. We are typically a five-star school district in the state of Ohio, which is the highest rating that you can receive. Uh, we are typically in the top 20 or 25 school districts in a rating called Performance Index, which takes all the state test scores and all the state metrics and kind of rolls them into one score and then spits out a number. And usually we're in the top 20 or 25 of school districts in Ohio. In that last year, we ranked 10th. So that's, I mean, so it's yeah, thank you. And then we also, so we have that academic tradition going. We also have our athletic tradition, which is very strong here. We have 43 team state championships across all sports, which is phenomenal. And we also have a high level. We have over 90% of our high school students that are in a club activity or extracurricular sport. So when you walk down the hallways at Minster High School, almost every kid has a locker sign on it, whether it's band or student council or baseball or football or basketball or whatever it might be. So that's I told you all that to say that we do things really well here, and we have a very, very, very sound traditional way of doing things. So the outside world does move at warp speed. And so what we try to do here is we don't chase fads and we don't chase trends. We don't do things just because they're flashy. We really make a concerted effort to make sure that whatever trend or fad or new initiative is out there, and you hear them all the time in education, you hear them all the time. Whatever it is that's out there, we want to make sure 100% that whatever that initiative is, that it fits for Minster first. Because if it doesn't, then we're not going to do it because we have such a high level of achievement. We want to make sure that we're comfortable with things before we change anything. And so I really committed when I came here. I guess the visual or the analogy I use, if you're in a ship on the ocean and you make a 1 degree change today in
That's a
education,
big one.
that in education in 15 years, that's a big change. Just like if you were on a ship in the ocean and you make a 1 degree course change in 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles, that gets you pretty far off course. So we
Right.
make sure that we stick with what we know. We make sure we stick with what we do well, and because we do so many tremendous things here that we just really make sure that, yeah, while life moves at warp speed outside, we're going to take care of our Minster kids first and do what's best for them.
So, what would you say is probably your biggest challenge right now?
Right now, as far as trends go, right now our biggest challenge is probably the artificial intelligence, the AI.
Yeah.
How to teach it effectively, how to use it effectively, when to use it, when not to use AI, when's the right time to use it, what depth and what percentage of time do students use it. That's probably one of our biggest academic challenges right now. Another one, this is not academics, but I alluded to the growth earlier in our district. When you have our elementary building is completely full of teachers and staff. There's nowhere else to put them. So we're also working on some permanent plans to address that facilities issue. For us also, one of our biggest challenges is staffing. Not so much maybe like elementary or general ed type positions, but when you get a specialized position like a high school Spanish or an upper level math or upper level science or some college credit plus requirements courses, those are incredibly tough to find right now.
Occupational therapy shouldn't be one more thing on your plate. It should be a solution. Lighthouse Therapy offers school based occupational therapy services that actually work for you and your staff. Our OTs have an average of 16 years of experience in schools, and they support everything from handwriting to fine motor to sensory integration. And you can choose from 3 different service models, whether it be virtual, hybrid, or in person. It's OT that fits your workflow without the chaos. Visit lighthouse-therapy.com/brighter together to learn more. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. That's a theme that I've seen throughout, either those kinds of classes or your special education teachers,
Yeah,
finding the right discipline or
yeah,
whatever to provide those services as well is a challenge.
sure.
And it's a challenge I've seen consistently, and it's part of the reason we do what we do, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
You,
yeah.
one kind of operating principle that we have here is we'll hire person over paper. We will hire the right person, maybe even if they don't have the right degree or licensure, and we'll get them alternative pathways and alternative licensure and all that stuff. But we won't force a person that doesn't fit here, kind of the square hole
Yeah,
round peg,
right.
or round hole square peg, I guess.
Either way, it works. The analogy works either way.
We won't force that person that's not the right person just because they have a certain piece of paper. We'll make sure we have the right person first, figure out the licensure, the alternative pathway later. And what we have found is then once we've had those right people in the door, maybe they transfer later. Like we just had it this year, a special ed teacher is going to transfer next year to a fourth grade position because we had a fourth grade teacher retire. Now, if we wouldn't have had that person in that position, the right person, we'd have missed on them. You know, so that's one thing that the principals here and I really work on hard.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you have two principals under you then, like a high school, or do you have
We
a middle
do.
school as well?
We do. No, we have two buildings, a K through 6 building and a 7 through 12
Yeah.
building. And our K through 6 principal is Mrs. Mandy Hours. She taught first and third grade here for a long time, and grew up in Fort Lormy, which is just a stone's throw away from here. And our high school principal is Austin Kaler. Austin grew up in Minster, graduated from Minster, and
Wow.
taught in Minster. So you know, he has a lot of institutional and town knowledge that's very valuable, and so does Mandy. The only thing I don't like about what you said is, do they work under me? Absolutely
No,
not.
they don't.
They
No,
do
I get
not.
you.
They
Yep.
do not. We work
You're
side
not
by
the first
side.
person to correct me that way too. I've heard that before. Do not say they
Yeah.
work under me.
No.
I totally get that. It's just like,
Yeah.
you think of
Yeah.
an org chart and they're
Yeah.
under you. But
Yeah.
yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
totally get it.
technically in an organizational chart, yeah, they're underneath me. And certainly I do their evaluations and all that
Right.
stuff. And having said that, you know, we work together so often and so collaboratively, that they give me so many great ideas, and such valuable feedback, that I hesitate to think of it in that way.
Yeah, it's a team. It's a
It
team.
is.
The
It
same
is.
here. It's like
Yeah.
you can hang the CEO and
Yeah.
entrepreneur. I
Sure.
think I said that to you at the beginning. I consider myself a speech therapist first. I always tell people I've been an SLP for 32 years because it's my DNA. It's who I am. God called me into this. This is my mission, to serve kids and to serve schools and to serve therapists, and so I'm doing this entrepreneurial lighthouse therapy thing that makes me a CEO and owner. But fundamentally, I'm still an SLP and I'm still all about taking care of the kids and the therapists. And I tell people, God just keeps bringing the right people. And I just keep filling those spots with the people that he brings to me because it makes my life so much easier. And when you start the way I started with I was our first SLP, right? I mean, it's like, I can fill that job. I know how to do that. Our first contract was in a state I was licensed in. So, but then as you grow and you have all of these, I always liken it to a juggler spinning plates. I have been able to give all of those wobbly plates to somebody
Yeah.
else, but they're all a part of that team, right?
Yeah.
You cannot do this without a team of amazing people under you, and they are all amazing, and I'm so grateful. So I
Yeah.
totally get it.
Yeah, and you know, it's for us too. I mean, it's in a small community like Minster, and I'm sure other places, whether it be Minnesota or Montana or small town Texas or wherever. For us, it's just as important. Your bus drivers, your cooks, your teachers' aides. The rest of your administration team, like your technology coordinator, your transportation director, buildings and grounds, and all that stuff. I mean, I tell our, half jokingly but half seriously, the first 2 or 3 days of school, all anybody cares about is, did their kid get to school on time? Did they get fed lunch? And did they get home on time? And how important is that first impression, those first 2 or 3 days, especially for our younger primary students, that their bus driver greets them, that their cafeteria, their cafeteria server greets them, and that they get off the bus and that they have a positive experience. Nobody expects them to learn anything the first 2 or 3 days, and maybe I shouldn't say that out loud, but they want to know. They want to know.
But it is learning. I mean, you
Yeah.
have to learn the process of being in school and how that
Yeah.
works, and that's part of
Yeah.
the process. And then at the end of school, I'm sorry, there isn't a ton of learning that happens that last week of school either, because it's all field trips and everybody's done. I get it. It is such a fun time when you're doing the field days and the outside. Everybody's been cooped up all winter, and now it's warm and school's about to get out, and we're going to have some fun and lots of field trips and lots of fun things happening. And those are a part of life too, and they just become such a big part of what you expect school to look like at the end of the year. So, and I think if you don't embrace those things, those are such a huge part of what makes school. Yes, there's learning. Yes, there's academics. Yes, there's reading and writing and arithmetic and all of those other things but you have to embrace the human beings and you have to
Yeah.
embrace the process.
Yeah,
So
for sure. So it's a total team effort. And you just mentioned all the fun things that you do at school.
yeah,
Which actually is a point I kind of wanted to talk about.
sure.
Nobody works harder than our teachers and staff at Minster. And I want to say this also, nobody has more fun with our students. There's not a place on earth, and I would argue anyone to prove me otherwise, that has more fun with their students than what we do. And I had to go back a little bit. I had no connections to Minster when I came here. I maybe knew tangentially a couple people that worked here through second or third hand other colleagues. I don't have any relatives here, but what I found extremely unique my first year here is how much fun we have with our students. And we have a huge Oktoberfest here. We're kind of a German community. Not kind of, we are a German community. We do a huge Oktoberfest here, and the Friday of Oktoberfest at school, kids are dressed up in their Oktoberfest outfits with their hats and their lederhosen and everything else, and we're doing chicken dances out front. And you go to things like homecoming pep rallies, the assemblies that our high school does with our students, just the end of the 9 weeks awards assemblies that we do, just all the different things that our staff does, and they do them and they're fun, and they do them to celebrate the success of our students.
Yeah.
And that kind of maybe takes the edge off of learning, where it's not so mundane every day, 185 straight days,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Josh, where do people go? Because boy, you've painted a beautiful picture of a community and a school, and I'm sure somebody's going to want to pick your brain. So, and I know that's the other beautiful thing. You mentioned that earlier about, there are so many people that if I had a question, I know who I could go to and ask, because that's what educators do. They share, and it is such a beautiful thing. So where do people go to find Minster and to find you?
Yeah. Well, our school website is minsterschools.org. And then you can also look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. We're pretty active on social media. We feel it's a great way to celebrate our students, recognize our staff, and put our message out there. So if you just search Minster Schools, Minster, Ohio on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we'll come up. We do that. We focus on that because if we don't tell our story, who is going to?
Absolutely.
So we like to put our kids and our staff out there and what they accomplish. As far as contacting me, Josh.Meyer, Josh.Meyer, Meyer at minsterschools.org. And always happy to connect. You mentioned that we steal things all the time as educators. And certainly, I know I've been on the phone with 2 or 3 area superintendents today, running situations by them, and that's how we work and how we learn. So
yeah, and it's that bigger team, right? You talk about the team at the school, but that's the bigger community team, and I love that. And Minster, for those of you that are listening, it's Minster, just so that we have the spelling correct for you guys. Yeah. I just always want people to be able to find us and what we're doing and you and what you're doing. So Josh, it has been it's just been an absolute pleasure to speak with you. That hometown feel and just all of the connections that we have. It's just been an absolute pleasure. Yeah. So thank you for coming on Brighter Together. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Janet. Always happy to talk about what our students and staff are doing here at Minster, and it's certainly my pleasure.
Thank you.